What's happening, everybody? My name is Christian, and this is part 3 of the Tennessee Nightingale solo tutorial. If you missed part 2, feel free to click this link right here, and that will take you to it so you can recap everything that we've talked about so far. Appreciate the comments that you've left me. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it, so I'm going to keep the format pretty much the same, long videos talking about everything that I'm doing. I figured out that the whole series is probably going to last for 7 videos. So it's going to be a lot of stuff, but I feel like it's necessary to break up the sections like that because there are a lot of, especially later on in the tune, there are a lot of really involved things that I can't just show you. I really have to explain what's going on for you to understand what's happening. So anyway, let's get to this next part. We just finished the last section, part 2, with this little arpeggio. With that thing. So we're pretty much starting right here and ending and kind of doing that passage. So let's get right to that. Okay, so the first thing we have to do, just like all of the other parts, is figure out what the chord progression is for this section. Fortunately, the chord progression is largely the same as part 2, just with a tiny little difference at the end. So let's just run through all of that real fast. We've got a bunch of 1, bit of 4, 1, 6, 2, 5. This is where it's different. We have a real quick 1, 6, 2, then back a half step, dominant, which is the 5 of the next chord, B flat. So that last passage is the only real different part. And you really hear that spelled out with the line that's going on, so it'll be pretty obvious. But anyway, that's the chord progression, so let's just get to it. First chord that I'm playing over is the E dominant. So in the past, when I've played over E dominant over this tune, I play E dominant. I do, you know, that sort of sound, which is the very hard dominant 7 sound. But this whole section, I'm not really doing that. I'm playing straight minor for the most part, which is honestly more common to do over the dominant 7th. I'm sure most of you know that if you're playing over a dominant chord, you can play dominant, just like I was doing, but you can also play minor. So that's, you know, all those licks you can play over E dominant. It's going to be perfectly fine. So that's kind of what I'm doing right here. I start like this. Right? Very dominant, or excuse me, very minor. That last little lick is not really minor. It's more kind of dominant country, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. First, let's go over every little part. So this first thing, very, very common lick you hear a lot, sort of in country, but all I'm doing is I'm bending in a way that gives me a whole step, 2 notes that are whole step apart being played simultaneously. So I could have just done this like that, but it's kind of cool to bend up to it. Gives it that sort of lap steel sound. So if you ever want to get that sound, just make sure that you have a figure right here. Make sure the pointer finger note is good. Make sure the note that you're bending up to is good. And it's always going to work. Like you can do it right here too. Right? You can do it right here. I do that quite a bit. It's a really cool sound. You get that kind of stretched bending kind of sound. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. Bring it back. Another little bend up and back, right? After that, 2 of these, really common. I don't really have to explain these unison bends that everyone does. Right, I'm just bending up to 5. Do it 2 times. Then after this, I do this. Okay, so this is just a little, you can call this like a pedal tone sort of lick where I'm playing a note, going to the B, the 5. Then I'm playing another note, going back to the 5. So a longer pedal tone lick would be something like this. Something like that, which I'm sure you've heard that before. That's just changing notes on top, but keeping the low note the same. So I just do that real fast. So D, B, C sharp, B. Then this next lick is this. So that's just me hitting flat 5, going up to the 6, the C sharp, walking all the way down the blues scale until I get to 7. Okay, so that whole thing. So if you want all the notes for that walk down, you've got B flat, C sharp, B, B flat, A, G, E, D. Okay, so that's that run. This is a really cool sound, by the way. This is, I'm playing minor pentatonic, mostly, but I'm throwing in 2 other notes. I'm throwing in the flat 5, and I'm throwing in the 6, the raised 6. So the flat 5 is pretty easy to explain because it's part of the blues scale, which everyone knows. Then the 6 is part of what most people would call the Dorian scale. That sort of sound. I don't really think about it like that. I think about it like this. The flat 5 is right behind normal 5. So the flat 5, when we play it, has a natural tendency to want to go up or back, because it's right next to 5 and 4. The 6 has a natural tendency to want to go up to 7, because it's right behind 7. And 5 and 7 are 2 very, very normal notes in E minor. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about, not necessarily scales or anything like that. So it's a great sound. If you ever want to get that kind of pseudo-jazzy sound in your blues playing, throw in those 2 notes. Just figure out where they all are, where the flat 5 and 6 is in this position, or in any position, and then run lines with those in it. So you can do... You get a lot of those cool... that sort of sound. It's a really great sound, and it flows real nice. So once again, that's just really just adding flat 5 and raised 6. I think I added 1 more note in that little run that I just did, but that's largely it, just flat 5 and 6. Really cool sound. After that, so after we do this, all that, we get back to this lick right here, and that's the same actually sort of thing, just in double stop form. So I'm playing the 4th and 6th, then when I move it up a fret, I'm playing flat 5 and 7, right? And then playing this right here, this double stop, which is 3rd and 5. And I'm doing that. Picking once, slide up, slide back, pull off, pick, pull off. And I'm doing that with my fingers too. Then the D, E, little hammer-on, and we start this next lick. Really a pretty common one. You probably played this already, but it's hammer-on from D to E, flatten the finger, which grabs the A and the C sharp, 4 and 6, back to the E, G and B, hammer onto the G sharp, back to the E. So I'm doing a pick, hammer on, fingers, pick, fingers, hammer on to the E. And then after this, like, I'm walking down, just like that. E, D, B, B flat, A. And at this point, this A takes us to the next chord, the A dominant, which we'll talk about in a second. This lick, though, this whole thing actually is really hard to play up there because I feel like I'm running out of room. But it's very comfortable to play in lower positions because the frets are a little bit bigger and all that stuff. I'm sure you've heard that lick before. It's a very, very common one. So anyway, let's move on to the A7. So with this A7 chord, I'm kind of doing something a little bit different than I have done earlier in the tune, where it's kind of the same thing. I'm not really playing dominant over it. I'm playing a sound that I really like. It's one of my favorite sounds when I can throw it in. And it's playing I'm playing more of like an A suspended sound, something like that, rather than the A dominant. And I'm doing it like this. Here's the lick. Okay, so this lick, if you notice, I'm not really playing 3 all that much. I mean, I am. I've just ended on it, but I'm only hitting it kind of intermittently. So check out this first lick. Very common, right? Very simple. Just, just fingers 1, 3, 1, 3. Very easy. And that's just A, 2, or excuse me, 1, 2, 4, 5. A, B, D, E. So that sound right there is a very A suspended sound. And what's the quality of suspended? A suspended sound is straight up this. It's a dominant style chord that does not have 3 in it. So if you want that sound, that more suspended sound, like that sort of thing, just play a figure, play a passage, but leave out 3. Do not play 3, whatever you're doing. So, like that whole sound right there is A dominant, very straight up, but I'm just forcing myself to never play the C sharp anywhere. And that's how you get that cool suspended sound over a dominant chord. It's really awesome. It's one of my favorites. You can also use it over minor too, but I'll talk about that later. So anyway, this lick, that's how it starts. Now, I do play the 3 right here, so I kind of am sort of breaking the rule that I just talked about, but I play it just briefly. Hit the 3, then 1, 2, 4, flat 7, 1, 5. So let me play that lick. Okay, so I want to break it up into kind of some smaller sections. Here's 1, This next one, just those two, then this. Okay? The phrase is a little odd too, and that's kind of probably why I like the lick so much. So you can kind of decide what kind of phrases you want to create with this, but it's a really cool sound, this kind of sus sort of thing. How I'm picking this, by the way, I think I'm doing pick, finger, pick, pick, hammer on, finger, finger, hammer on, pick. Okay? I think, but once again, you can do whatever you want. It's pretty easy to pick too. Well, maybe it's not. There we go. I actually really like this lick at slower tempos. I'm kind of, this song is really quick, it's like, and it's cool, but it really sounds too jumbled. I honestly wish the tune was slower, because when at this tempo, it has a really great flow to it when it grooves like that. So anyway, that's that lick. After I hit this E, I then walk back to the C sharp and then D. Now this begins this next lick. Okay, and this lick, so it really starts on the D, and I kind of do that. This lick is based off of sixths. If you're not sure what a sixth is, it's this. These two notes are 6 letters apart. So this is A and C sharp, or E and C sharp. So E, F, G, A, B, C sharp. Right, so 6 letters away, which is why this shape is called a sixth. Whenever you play these, any of these shapes, those are all 6. Now they're different 6. This is a major 6, minor 6. So they're a little bit different, but they're really common in blues, jazz, country for sure. And so all I'm doing right here is I'm just kind of moving a little kind of lower figure down here and then grabbing the top note. Right? That's my first lick. So I'm playing D, E, grabbing the C sharp with my ring finger, going back to E. Then I do the same thing back a sixth. Right? So that's C sharp, D, B, D. Then I do the same thing right here. Right? So that's B, C sharp, A. Except the lick is a little bit different here. I do that. So B, C sharp, A, C sharp, G. So I kind of break the pattern a little bit. Okay? And every time I'm hitting the B string, I'm using my ring finger, by the way, on my right hand. So after I hit the G, I'm going to do this little, you know, B, B flat, B, that little half step motion. Excuse me. After I hit that, I'm going to come down this shape. So that's like an E sus, sort of minor sus sound. This is all over A, by the way. It's all over the A7. So that's just F sharp, D, B, E, E. The second I hit this E, and I'm now back to the E chord. So that's just kind of nailing it to really hammer home that change. So once again, that whole thing, I was messing around with a different fingering for it earlier. I was doing, playing the G right there instead of right there. Then you can do, which is also kind of cool. So figure out what you want to play, you know, come up with your own fingering. But I'll stick with this one. It's also one of the hardest licks to play in this whole tune. Whenever it comes, I get very afraid. But anyway, that's really this that whole section. So let me just recap all of that. So I had this. Play a little slower. And now we're on to the next section, which is kind of the 6-2-5-1 turnaround. Okay, so now for this 6-2-5 turnaround, it's actually pretty simple. I just finished doing this, right? Hitting that E, then I slide up and do that kind of run. This is all pretty much during the E chord. So E, that bend is when the 6th chord happens. So this is really a straight up E arpeggio. Root, 3rd, 5th, root, 3rd, 4, 5, bend up to 6, which is the root of the 6th chord at this time. So this lick I'm playing right here it's really just kind of E sounding. I'm not really spelling out C sharp or anything like that, or the F sharp minor. I'm really just playing E, and sometimes that's a cool sound. Sometimes, even though the chord changes are happening, you can just hammer down a lick that's very one sounding, and as long as the lick is strung by itself, even if the notes aren't lining up perfectly with the changes, it can still sound pretty cool. So that's what's happening right here. And that's that lick. And all these notes, they still do pretty much function over the whole chord. So this bend, that's over the C sharp, so that's the root of the C sharp, that's the flat 7 of the C sharp, that's the sharp 5 of the C sharp, flat 7 of the C sharp, sharp 5 and all that stuff. And that's kind of the chord I'm playing at this moment too. So I'm playing root, there's a flat 7, there's a sharp 5. So it really does line up, but I'm not really thinking about C sharp for sure. I'm thinking just like a real kind of standard E major-y sounding lick. That's all I'm doing right there. And when I hit these two notes, right? Little slide into the third and then root of E minor, or excuse me, of E major. But the chord is actually F sharp minor. So doing that actually gives you some pretty cool notes over this chord. So if I sing everything over the chords, so that's like bum 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 bum. So this note, da da, that is the 9 of this chord. Da da da, and that's the flat 7. So you kind of get that sound over F minor. It's a great sound. Da da da. You know, it's one of my favorite sounds, 9 over a standard minor, as most people like that sound too. So it's not only me. But that's what's happening right there. Okay. After that, we have this big long run that looks like this. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm kind of walking up what feels still pretty much like E major. Even though the chord at this moment, we're still playing F sharp. When I hit that E right there, now we're on the B7. So I'm really not thinking B7, and I'm going to describe what I'm thinking about because it's a little bit different. So I've got... Okay, so that's just C sharp, E, F sharp, A, G sharp, F sharp, E. Pretty simple. When I hit the E again, I do this. Okay, so E, G sharp, F sharp, E. Then I hit C, B, and then I do this little thing twice. So C, B, and then E, C, B, E, C, B. Okay? After that, after I hit the B right there, I walk down a C major arpeggio, chromatic and closing, the B right there. And then I grab the C sharp, which that is a 6th again. It's the 5th and 3rd of the E chord, which is the chord I'm on at that moment. So I'll play it slower. So now you might be wondering, I'm playing C major 7. That's pretty much what that is. If you look at the notes, not this part, that's pretty much just E. But this part, that's pretty much a C major 7 arpeggio. I'm doing that over a B dominant. Why would I do that? What purpose does the C major 7 have over B dominant? I'm thinking about it like this. I know the B dominant is just simply a dominant chord that's moving to a 1, right? It's just a chord that is taking me to 1. So I thought, what's another chord that I can play that also sounds good moving to 1? A chord that has like a hard resolution moving to 1. Well, what's a really common one? How about A minor? Right? A minor to 1. That's a minor 4 to a 1. How often have you heard that? It's in so many tunes. Listen to any Beatles song and you're probably going to hear it. It's just a really common resolution. It's, I think, what's the proper term? Like a minor plagal, I think is the proper term. I could be wrong about that. But anyway, that's a great sound. And however you do it, you know, A minor to E major. You can even do fancy ones. A minor, you know, to E major. It's a really, really great sound. So all I'm doing right here is I'm playing C major 7. You're probably thinking, okay, didn't you just say A minor? What's C major 7? Where does that come in? Because the A minor chord, A minor 7, right, is almost verbatim the same chord as C major. If we look at the notes of A minor, so A, C, E, G versus C major 7, C, E, G, B, well, you probably notice that both chords have C, E, and G shared between them. That's really, really similar, right? The only difference is the A chord has an A, and the C major 7 has a B. Well, how far apart are those notes? A whole step, right? So those two chords, A minor 7 and C major 9, are so similar that you can kind of use them interchangeably pretty much. So that's all I'm doing right there. So that also allows you to say, if you want a cool chord progression, let's say you're writing a tune and you want to end with minor 4 to 1, you can always end with the C to the 1. So that would be like the flat 6, right? If this is 1, that's 4, minor 4 to 1. Or you can play 1, it's flat 6 right there. You can do a whole bunch of cool things. So like C major to E, or like a fancy C major to fancy E major. You know, a lot of that stuff is really cool, and that's just based off of this minor 4 to 1. That's where this lick comes from. Okay, so that's all it is. Even though it is a B7, I'm just kind of disregarding, forgetting the fact that it's a B7, and instead I'm thinking of, I need a sound that's going to help me resolve to the 1 chord strongly, and that's what this is doing. So once again... Okay, so that's that, and let's just do this tiny little bit for the next section, which takes us to the next part of the series. Okay, so for this final part, there's not really much to it. I just wanted to sneak it in there just so we make sure we cover everything. So we just finished with this. So this section now, the chord progression is this. Okay, that's that wacky key change right there. And what I'm playing is just spelling out the chords verbatim. So I end with this, right? That's my 5th third of the E chord. Then I just go 5th third of the C sharp chord, which is the chord that's happening. Then I do, right, just hit the 5th of the C sharp, do this little half step move into the F sharp and the flat 7 of it, which is the chord that's happening at that moment, 1 in flat 7 of F sharp minor. Then I do the same thing, little chromatic enclosure again, up to the F natural, into the flat 7 of it, which is the chord that's happening at that moment. Then I do this little kind of cheeky walk up, which takes us to the B flat, right? And that takes us to all that stuff, which we'll talk about in the next video. So just to recap everything, I'm going to try to play everything sort of slow so you can see everything happening in action. And I'm going to start from here. Here we go. So that's really it. Let me play some of those faster sections a little slower, actually. Let me do from here. And then this part. So what I'm playing is actually, let me talk about this part real fast. I'm picking it, for the most part, everything. And then when I hit the G and I walk down the C arpeggio, I'm doing a little bit of economy picking right there. Just one upstroke to hit all of those. Or, excuse me. Okay, so if you have any questions about how I'm doing it, I'll elaborate on that a little bit later. But I just want to get the notes out there so you can kind of absorb everything that's happening and maybe use your own technique to play. My technique, what I do, which I'll probably eventually talk about at some point, is I just kind of do everything, but I don't do one thing really well. I can alternate pick, I can do hybrid picking, I can do economy picking, but I'm not really great at any of those things. I kind of do all of them to hopefully sound like what I want to sound. So maybe I'll talk about that a little bit in the future. But anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Once again, leave a comment in the comment section and stay tuned for part 4. Thanks again.